The New Jersey Democrats, led by Governor Phil Murphy, have declared war on law enforcement.
You want to defund the law enforcement, but yet you want them to go out there and do their job proficient. Well, if you defund them, how are they doing their profession if they don't have the money for the training to be proficient?
The Democrat Party's soft on crime policies are put in place to protect criminals and handcuff cops and minimize the victims.
Bail reform. You know, you get locked up and you're out before I'm even typing up the paper and putting ink on paper.
In your experience, do white criminals ever get shot?
Of course.
We don't hear much about it.
No.
There's more white males that are shot by law enforcement than there are black. Why isn't that not out there? Because the Democrats don't want to say, oh, cops are shooting more white people than black people, because they want to make that division. They want to divide the country.
We have elected officials now bum rushing the gate of an ICE detention center, assaulting officers. I want to see people indicted for official misconduct and removed from office. And I know this is walk away, but my message to everybody, run away.
We're here today with New Jersey law enforcement officers to talk about some of the issues that impact law enforcement professionals in the state of New Jersey. Why don't we start off today with you gentlemen telling us your names and a little bit about your background in law enforcement in New Jersey.
Sure, my name is Rossolei. I'm a retired Jersey City police detective. I work narcotics, I work street crime, robbery, had training in DEA, FBI, NYPD, John Jay School of Law for search and seizure. So, got a lot of training when I was on the job, involved with thousands of arrests and, responding to different scenes. Just a vast amount of experience.
What do some of those acronyms mean?
Oh.
For those of us who
So, when you go to a job, so it could be a shooting, it could be a stabbing, it could be an armed robbery.
DEA, what's that?
DEA is the Drug Enforcement Agency. FBI, obviously,
yes.
Everybody knows the FBI is.
I feel like there was one more.
And the NYPD. So HIDTA training was high intensity drug trafficking area, because obviously I was working narcotics, so I was, well trained by the Jersey police. Back then sent me to the school, which was in John Jay School of Law. It's always good to know your field. Also making high risk entries. So anything involving drugs, as you know, is a violent aspect of the job.
Sure.
Because drugs and violence go hand in hand. So the training really is about, keeping you alive. It's about survival.
Very good. I feel like there was one more acronym, but it'll probably come up again.
I'll gladly answer it.
Okay. You, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me here. Brian Buckfuso, retired 26 and a half years of law enforcement detective out of Robbinsville Township Police Department. Started my career in Princeton, where I was born and raised, and here in New Jersey. Lived my whole life in Mercer County, New Jersey. Retired in 2015. Again, like Mark said, was involved with narcotics, homicide, sexual assaults, child abuse. He dealt with domestics, writing search warrants, preparing search warrants to go to a Superior Court judge to sign off on to execute that search warrant. So my training was involved with both local law enforcement, county law enforcement, state agencies, worked alongside with the FBI, various cases. Our prosecutor's office, I was assigned to a special investigations unit, working narcotics, worked a wiretap for a lengthy period of time, which executed and culminated in several arrests, lots of drugs taken off the streets. Enjoyed my career in law enforcement. Do I miss the job? Yes, I miss it. Miss the camaraderie, just don't miss the politics, the circus part of it, and the background.
And you're both retired?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes, sir.
How long were you in law enforcement?
26 years.
26 and a half years.
26 and a half years. Wow. The first question I'd like to ask you guys is, please raise your hand if at any point in your career before you retired, or in any conversation subsequent to your retirement with your colleagues, have you or your colleagues ever felt like you wanted to retire from the profession due to lack of support at a state or local level?
I can't say that I personally ever wanted to walk away from it, but I will say that the time that I did retire in 2015, shortly thereafter, there was a lot of talk amongst officers who were not engaged in the job as much as I was when I was there, due to the lack of support and backing from political leadership within the agency itself, coming from a chief perhaps or a lieutenant, feeling that they're going out and doing the job, but who has my back while I'm out there doing the job that I was trained and educated on to do, feeling that it wasn't there. And they're like kind of like left out to hang. Like, why am I going out and doing this job to serve a community when within my agency itself or with the council is not there to back me? My residents may back me, but the council and mayor may not have my back. And why is that happening? What's going on that there's a change in having that support and back there, going out there and giving your life while others are sleeping? You're out there to protect and serve 24/7. And they felt that was happening at times. And it was hard for officers to go out there and do the job. Like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. What's going on here?
Well, and let's get into that in a moment, but you didn't raise your hand.
I was being a gentleman. I was going to. So listen, here's the reality. Early in my career, didn't feel like that at all. As the New Jersey Democrats started to go off the rails, you started to feel more. Once I was in retirement, the New Jersey Democrats started getting towards this ideology of lawlessness, embracing criminals. I think once I became an elected official and over as a councilman, I spoke about the whole sanctuary state process of Senator Cory Booker tipping off illegals when ICE was going to do a raid. To me, you're putting law enforcement in danger, and it was causing them to have to go make high-risk entries. Listen, law enforcement's unique. You have a split second to make a decision to keep a community safe. You're going to piss some people off. And if you don't have the elected body standing with you, it's really hard to do the job. The fact is you can't keep a community safe without making some people angry. Are you going to stop someone who fits a description? Of course. You always say, thanks for your cooperation, move on. But if you're going to have an elected official, every time you do something that's questionable, wants to hang you out to dry, it's almost impossible to do. That's why you see now you have a massive retirement. We call it a brain drain. That's when the cops with the most experience are retiring because of all the BS. And it's all coming from the political aspect. The New Jersey Democrats, led by Governor Phil Murphy, have declared war on law enforcement. I think everybody sees it. When you're out there embracing lawlessness, when you're having an insurrection on an ICE detention center, which we saw recently, when you don't even think twice about assaulting an officer, it really makes people, and you remember, there are people with families, with children, so that, if you're a young cop a couple of years in, you could have a wife, a girlfriend saying, do you really want to do this? Transition to become a fireman, do something else, be a teacher. So I think as the New Jersey Democrats have gone off the rails, you've seen a lot of negative impact on law enforcement.
True, absolutely. And then I said this to you earlier. I got into law enforcement because my father was in law enforcement. It's something I wanted to do. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I wanted to be a detective. My last 10 years, 12 years of being in law enforcement, I was a detective. I enjoyed that aspect of the job. I enjoyed the aspect of going out and being the first point of contact with a victim in the most worst time of their life. It may not be what they want to see. They don't want to have to call law enforcement, don't want to see us. There's others that were grateful and thankful for us to be there as a community. But again, the leadership doesn't, and at that time when I was leaving, started falling back on not backing law enforcement. And like Mark says here, we have split seconds to make a decision. I can't pull a trigger and pull that bullet back if, God forbid, I was ever in that position. And thankfully, I was not in that position to ever fire my weapon. But the consequences afterwards, Monday morning quarterback, you have months and hours and days to sit and figure out and sit there and try to figure out, could the situation have gone different? Could it have been done different? I have a split second decision to make as to myself going home or putting others, to make sure their safety and they're going home. But you have, as he said, you have leadership, government leadership. We had a governor here who was, as we thought, had our backs, and in 2011 just totally changed the whole situation around. Mark's been retired since 17, I've been retired since 15. I haven't gotten a cost of living adjustment because of a governor back in 2011 that did that, also messed with health benefits. When you go into a job, you take an oath, Constitution, and this is the agreement of the job. Well, midterm, no, you're not going to get your health benefits. You have to pay into it. You're not going to get a cost of living. Well, wait a minute. Well, I didn't agree to that. That doesn't happen. I understand it may happen in other works and other aspects, but for going out there and doing the job, putting your life on the line for your community, for the residents, for your fellow officers, to be there and have their backs, to not have something, there at the end of your term when you're walking out the door, it's scary. And a lot of officers were thinking about that. Wait a minute, I jumped into this job and I'm doing this. Now you're telling me I'm not going to get this. Now I have to pay 35% of the healthcare premium into my retirement. I was thankful because of the contract I was in was grandfathered. I didn't have to, or I'm not having, But there's others, and it's not right. I was a delegate, a union delegate. I fought for my men and women in my rank and file at contracts with my mayor. My mayor kept coming to me. Come on, you got to give me health benefits. You got to give me this. I'm not giving it to you. Officers are coming in the door. They're going to get it. Now my agency has no health benefits for new hires. Wow. You have no health benefits when you walk out the door. So unless you get married and get benefits, you're not walking out with benefits after giving now 30 years, because they changed the system that you have to do 30 years of the job instead of 25. So you're doing 30 years to a community, and you're not getting anything on the back end when you walk out the door. So where's my appreciation value for what I've done to step up and take this job?
Well, so I want to ask a follow-up question to this, because to me, as an outsider, somebody who's not in law enforcement, I look and I see the culture really change after 2020. It seemed like there was this large push to defund the police, to demonize police officers. And I can only imagine what that would have done to the morale of police officers, because it really became a social movement for many people in this country to say, police officers are essentially the scum of the earth, and almost, I think, encourage people to antagonize police officers and resist police officers. And we saw mayors and governors and elected officials going along with this, almost encouraging this, and in many circumstances, even telling rioters and telling police officers to stand down while rioters and protesters were out there, looting, burning, causing damage and destruction. Am I right to feel like the culture became much worse after 2020? And if so, please
tell us about it. I think here in New Jersey, you had Governor Phil Murphy, who was participating in BLM protests. I think what it did was the presumption of innocence no longer applied to people in law enforcement. You were guilty until proven innocent. The Democrats push this whole narrative. Anything to try to win an election. The Democrat Party now has become the party of hate, political violence. The BLM protest was a convenient way for them to hijack and intimidate people. I think we see in all aspects of community now. We see it on college campuses funding these pro-Hamas protests. Who would think in New York City post 9/11 we would have people supporting terrorism? And it's being funded through the Democrat Party. They could say whatever they want. This really all revolves around politics. We see parents being targeted. And I also want to make out law enforcement, we're the victims here. There's a lot of other people in our communities that are being victimized. We have concerned parents who have been labeled domestic terrorists and extremists. So we're both in law enforcement, but we've been called so many things in the performance of our duties. Really, these radical BLM people, which we both know they were full of shit, pardon the French. So they're not going to intimidate us. But I think everybody out there has to understand, common sense has to push back. Okay, we have to go by now. I want to add the hashtag cancel culture. If good people band together and start pushing back on this insanity, the Democratic Party, communities can go back to normal again. And I think that's really important.
Brian, what do you think?
I agree. And the hard part with when you talk about BLM or you talk about protesters is they're out there to antagonize you. And law enforcement, you look at Minneapolis, officers abandoned a police station and let protesters take over and burn it down. And where was the leadership from then a governor who ran as a vice president candidate and did nothing to stand up to it? Even his wife made the comment of, I opened up the window and loved the smell of the burning tires. I mean, it's just insane. Who comes up with the common sense? Like Mark says, common sense is what the foundation is when it comes down to just thinking. You don't need the higher education just to come down with common sense of saying, what's right and what's wrong here? What are we doing here? Law enforcement is your first line of defense that you deal with here locally. You have your military that's there hopefully working as they are finally down at a border and shutting down a border and controlling what's coming into our country, and instead of the floodgates opening as they did. And you look at law enforcement, ICE can't be involved, or even local law enforcement can't assist ICE. I don't understand that. We all wear a badge. We all put our pants on the same way. We're all out there to do the same job. Why are we not working collectively together to do what's proper in a common sense form of protecting citizens? Why do you want lawlessness in your community? Why do you want criminals in your community that can harm you, your loved ones, your family members, stealing, whatever it may be? As I said, I ran for sheriff, and I had a problem running for sheriff and getting pushback from people saying, well, I don't think there should be law enforcement in schools. How do you not have a first line of protection in schools when you're having school shootings as a deterrent? You look in Nashville, there was a person who went to attack a school. The school that they had gone to, they didn't go back to that school because they knew there was law enforcement presence. They went to another school where they knew there wasn't and were able to enter that school. Now law enforcement is responding, not on the scene, coming in, trying to track down and running towards the threat to go in there and do that. While others are running away from it. We're running towards the threat. We're running towards, like running into a fire as firemen. We're going to it to eliminate that threat, eliminate the situation, and work with what has to do to protect people. And when you have leadership that's not there to back you, who's not there to stand up with you, it's a deterrent. You come out of COVID and law enforcement's not going out and doing their job because they feel like, now everyone has their phones and they're being provoked and they're being, stopped for whatever it may be. And right away you see people, they have their phones and they won't even open the window on their car, to talk to you and get documents from a person to see who they are. The pushback is there because they know who's going to back them up. No one's going to back up these guys. You want to defund the law enforcement, but yet you want them to go out there and do their job proficient. Well, if you defund them, how are they doing their profession if they don't have the money for the training to be proficient, to be better at their job, so that they're going out there doing what you expect from them? And it comes back again to common sense.
Well, I think the Democratic Party's soft on crime policies are put in place to protect criminals and handcuff cops and minimize the victim. That's exactly what's going on. And people need to understand that public safety is the foundation of any community. Listen, I don't see anybody rushing to move to Newark, New Jersey. Why not? Because it's not a safe environment to be in. That's what people need to understand. Like I said before, common sense.
And you talk about a governor that was a governor here before Murphy, but even with Murphy now, bail reform. You get locked up and you're out before I'm even typing up the paper and putting ink on paper. The criminal's back on the streets, right, going out there to do what he's done, and they know this. And
I'm going to stop you just because you're covering a lot of topics that we're going to bring up later.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So, if possible, let's stay focused on the question because almost everything you're saying is a different question.
I got you. I got you.
No problem. But you just said something interesting. Turning the victims into the police and victims. Right. Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to go back to that for a second. What is the end game? If you're trying to make the police into the bad guys and make the victims into the good guys, and you're saying that this is a policy thing, what is the end game? What are they trying to do?
Well, they have created this false messaging that the cops are the boogeyman and the Democratic Party were the protectors, when in reality it's the opposite. Everywhere they go, look at any community where there's Democratic leadership. It's crime, bad schools, poor economics. But people need to realize public safety and education, that drives your local economy, that maintains that quality tax base. So if you want a local community to thrive economically, you need to have public safety and a quality education. In Democratic-run cities, that doesn't happen, and we see it.
So am I hearing you correctly? Are you saying it's about control through fear-mongering, and the police have become the scapegoats? So the Democrats are saying, these are the people you need to be afraid of, and we're the guys that are going to come in and keep you safe.
110%. And they're not producing that. We see it everywhere. Look what's going on in New York City. I mean, we have colleges under siege by Democrat-paid protesters covering masks, pro-Hamas. Where would you ever think that you would have people supporting terrorists? It's just mind-boggling to me.
And it's a race thing, is it not?
Well, when in doubt, they play the race card, right?
Because it's about division.
110%. You must keep communities divided to maintain your control. That's why you see what's going on here in New Jersey, where they want to defend illegal aliens at all costs, right? Deportation now is a big thing because I think we all realize the Democrats are unhinged because they have these people registered to vote. They don't want them to be deported. They have imported third world criminals as their new constituency. Okay, that's why who would defend murderers, people who sexually assault women, child molesters? It's insane when you think about it. And I know this is walk away, but my message to everybody, run away.
Very good. So as retired New Jersey law enforcement officers, I want to ask you guys a question about the issue of race that has become so prevalent in the conversations about policing communities. I'd like you to raise your hand if you feel like the manipulation of race in this country has made it harder to police communities and keep communities safe.
Go ahead.
No, are you raising your hand though?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, no,
Well,
absolutely.
we need to see you do it.
Okay, sorry. Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
no problem.
No, 110%. I mean, so it's so if there's a, you notice from police body cam footage, if there's a clean shoot, if a cop's involved with a clean shooting, and it doesn't fit their narrative, the video is not released for months to exonerate the police officer. The moment that it fits the Democratic narrative to stir up the community and divide, that video is released instantaneously. You know, we had a shooting in my town, Old Bridge, clean shoot by the police officer. That video was held for a long period of time. And you know, you had the long lost father who shows up now and wants to be a loving parent because there was an officer involved, junior suspect got killed, making these false statements in the newspaper. The Attorney General, Matt Plankin, he was in no hurry to release that video. That's what they're trying to create here. It's always to make sure that the community is divided, and but they're all united against disliking the police because that's the Democrat narrative.
Well, let me ask you a question. In your experience, do white criminals ever get shot?
Of course.
We don't hear much about it.
No. Listen, I can tell you, when we stand roll call, the supervisor doesn't say, okay, we're going to lock up 5 blacks today, 5 Hispanics, and 5 whites. No. It's like, go out there, you know, who's wanted for a shooting, who's wanted for robbery, who are we going after? All that's all nonsense. It's just a Democrat playbook to keep the community divided. You know, somewhere in the Democrat, they must have rewrote the handbook where it says, okay, we're going to make the police the boogeyman because that's going to get us votes. And the reality, people need to understand they're putting their hands in your pocket here in New Jersey, you know, and spending $7.3 billion to finance the sanctuary state programs while defunding the police, defunding their school districts. That's what people need to wake up on. I think everybody can agree. I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. Public safety and education has to be your priority. That's what maintains your community. But the Democrats, they don't want you to do that.
And I agree. And not even just here when you talk about, you know, a shooting. You look at Daniel Penny. Situation, prime example. You know, out of the woodwork, family members show up, you know, and I understand the guy may have been, you know, an EDP. He had, you know, mental issues going on. But where was his loved ones and family to try to get that person help when they needed the help? They've changed it in not to get, and I don't want to get off the topic, but they talk about having a response team to go out and deal with people with mental issues that are going on because the person, you know, unfortunately may be black, as opposed to law enforcement showing up because we're going to end up shooting the person because they're going to come out, at us with a knife. Body cam helps law enforcement. It makes us more proficient in the job that we're doing. So for them to decise and dissect which video camera footage they want to put out there, again, it's the narrative. If it doesn't fit, it's not going to, show it. There's more white males that are shot by law enforcement than there are black. Why isn't that not out there? Because the Democrats don't want to say, oh, cops are shooting more white people than black people, because they want to make that division. They want to divide the country. Dealing with the illegals, and again, dealing with sanctuary towns, sanctuary state. What is this? There's common sense when it comes down to law enforcement. Law enforcement has a job to do to go out there and serve and protect everybody. I'm not going to not protect your family or not respond to your family's home because you're of a different ethnicity, Indian, black, Asian. It's a job that I have to do. It's what I signed up to do. So that doesn't come down to the officers going out there and making a choice as to which call they're going to respond to and how they're going to deal with the situation. Or does it heighten a situation and their officer's opinion and judgment based off of race and who you are and where you come from and your ethnicity? I worked in a middle to upper class community, not an inner city. Mark here dealt with city, so it's a little bit different in the job. But you don't treat people different. You know, I was brought up and raised, you treat everybody equally. There's no reason to make a judgment based off of someone's ethnicity. And that didn't change when I took the oath to take the job. And law enforcement doesn't do that either. You take the job to go out there and serve and do the right thing by the person, by the community, not making a judgment and giving less care or less of a job, effort into the position because of that.
You mentioned Daniel Penny, and it brings up, I think, an interesting angle to all of this, because whether you are a law enforcement officer or if you're an everyday citizen who finds yourself in a situation where, a dangerous situation is unfolding, there were many black people who were on that subway train riding when Jordan Neely got on the train.
Right.
Sure.
Who have testified in Daniel Penny's behalf, saying, thank God he was there.
Absolutely.
He saved my life.
Absolutely.
It was alleged that Jordan Neely got on the train and said, I'm going to kill somebody on this train today. But when you see, again, that angle of race sort of manipulated, where this became about, a white man killed a black man, with complete disregard for the fact that that black man was threatening people's lives and making other black people feel in danger.
Sure.
Whether you're an everyday citizen or you're an officer, do you feel that this narrative about race is making people less apt to get involved?
Oh,
and maybe
absolutely.
just step back and say, like, hey, I don't want to be called a racist. I don't want to have or be charged with murder or some sort of
Listen,
crime.
it could be making cops hesitate getting engaged.
Talk about that.
Sure.
I think if you're out on patrol and you see something minor going on, where normally like some drinking in public, usually back 10 years ago, it might have gotten issued a summons, quality of life, right, in the community. Where now, I'm going to get into it with a black guy over a drinking in public summons, but the quality of life ends up building up to where we have serious offenses like you see on the trains. Let's face it, New York City subways are under siege with crime, right? Because people are so hesitant now to get involved after during the thing. I mean, when the woman was set on fire by the illegal alien,
They walk right by.
everybody walked right by.
Walked right by.
You're telling me that didn't have an impact? Pennies didn't have an impact on it? Of course it did. It's human nature. No one wants to go through that, because people are going to say, you know what, my life is over now. When, for me, to do this show, it's very important because I'm not intimidated by the left. I can't be canceled. They already tried. I'm not going to back down from it. So
Yeah.
anything they say, but the average person, we have to deal with reality a lot. The average person just wants to go on with their life, come home, go to work, come home. They don't want to get involved with all the negativity that's going on with cancel culture and social media. You dealt with it, Buck's dealt with it, I've dealt with it, but we're built different. Most people aren't.
Yeah, and he's right. And even as a retired law enforcement officer, you drive down the road and you see an officer involved in something, and you second guess. I'm retired. Do I need to get involved? Do I want to get engaged? Guess what? I'm getting engaged. That person is putting on a uniform that I put on a uniform for 26 and a half years. I'm going to stop and I'm going to get involved. If he's having a tussle with somebody's fighting back, resisting arrest, I'm going to get involved. I'll deal with the consequences afterwards. And the consequences might be that, one, I can get injured. Two, I may get sued. I may, get involved in something I don't need to get involved in. I'm sorry, I bleed a different blood because of what I did, that I'm going to get engaged and get involved. And I see people, and you'll see people drive by. You watch video, in-car camera video of an officer tussling with somebody, and you see people drive by, and maybe a truck driver or somebody gets engaged and stops and says, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't how our law enforcement should be treated. I'm going to get involved and get engaged. And that's what I would do. And you second guess yourself. You walk to a store and you see a loss prevention officer, security get involved with someone stealing something. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is the squeeze worth the juice?
Juice worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about our
Right.
profession. There's no race when you got the blue. We all bleed blue.
Right.
The race problem is created by the Democrat Party. Within the police department, that doesn't exist. Sure, you may have, as a family, you're gonna have disagreements, but when it comes time to do the job, we all band together and do the job. You see that in disasters in this country. You saw it 9/11. I can go on and on and on. So
Yeah, but I have to wonder, and I really want to ask. I mean, there's been a narrative for a long time that if you're a black person in America, you're much more likely to be pulled over by an officer. You're much more likely to be targeted for a crime. My question to you guys is, I look at this and I wonder if you guys are probably pulling over black people less at this point because you just don't even want to deal with whatever the narrative might be if you do it.
You're partially correct in that, and I can give you a scenario back when I was in patrol. 12:30 at night, 1 o'clock at night, I'm sitting in a parking lot and I see a car go by. I pull out and I proceed to execute, initiate a motor vehicle stop. I walk up to the car. Mind you, window opens this much, and it's all blacked out tinted windows. So I don't know what's going in that car, who's in that car, how many occupants, what the situation is. And the individual did say to me, actually made the statement, you stopped me because I'm black. I said, you're partially correct. I stopped you because you have black tinted windows. I can't see the inside your vehicle. I said, but it's not because of who you are, because I couldn't see you. It's because of the makeup of a violation on the outside that I saw. Now I made that stop. Yeah, you're right, you are. It's not the reason why I stopped you though. It's not necessarily because of your skin color of what you're being stopped for, but you're right. Officers are fearful of engaging in making that stop. That's why I said body cameras were great, because people come out with their phones right away. I'm videotaping. That's great. I got my videotape too. I have all the reason to stop you, and it's not an illegal stop. This is why I stopped you. Provide your documents, and you go about your way. The resistance has escalated situations where, unfortunately, officers get hurt, people get shot, they're not going home, and they're saying, well, the cop initiated the stop and stopped him because of his race or color of his skin, and that's why he's not going home. No, because he didn't do just the basics. Provide your documents, deal with what you have to deal with, the consequences. It's a motor vehicle summons, or you may have try to elude the police because you're on probation and you have something illegal or you've done something illegal, when it's simple. And I have to go back to that phrase, the common sense. Provide your documents and everybody goes home at the end of the day. Deal with it in court. Deal with it with the judge. Pay your due, pay the fine, and we move on with life. Everyone goes home at the end of the day is what it's about. That's what I worried about.
Well, otherwise it becomes, I think, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what could have been a simple routine traffic stop escalates into something more along the narrative of what that person's trying to say that it was in the first place, but it never had to go to that level
Never.
there had just been basic cooperation from the very beginning.
And that's where the body cameras help us. It can work to your advantage so long as you do your job right. If you don't do your job right, it's going to jam you up. Well, guess what? We rooted out a bad apple that didn't belong in our bunch. Yeah. Because the one bad apple, we all look like we're the bad guys, and we're not all the bad guys.
Well, I think you have the Democrat Party that's pushing that narrative on the minority community. Oh, if you get pulled over, play the race card immediately. Don't worry, we'll have your back. So of course, now that's causing tensions on the track. Listen, I was never a ticket guy, but I could tell you that if you get pulled over, you cooperate, you're probably not going to get a summons. So all the false narrative that Democrats are finally always pushing out there, if you just cooperate, listen, cops want a safe stop interaction with everyone. Every cop wants a good interaction with a member of the community. No one wants to have to shoot anybody, trust me, especially nowadays. In New Jersey, Phil Murphy, the AG, Matt Plankton, you're guilty
dry in a
before
heartbeat.
proven innocent.
So hang
but
out.
Getting back to when I'm working in narcotics, listen, if I'm in a blood neighborhood, and everybody knows blood's 100% a black gang, if I have a white known person walks into the area known to use narcotics, of course I'm going to tell that person to take me to the drug dealer. It's just common sense. It's good police work. They want to always label something a profile stop. No, it's called proactive policing. That's what people are losing it. The Democrat Party, everything has to be race because that's the only way to get votes. Like I said earlier, look at Newark, New Jersey. I'll use that as an example. What's synonymous with Newark? Crime. Failing schools, bad economy.
Right, another blue city.
Blue city,
like
Democrat
Trenton's
forever.
No different.
Okay, now a bad airport, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
Now we have a transit strike. And what's the New Jersey Democrats doing? Racing to Newark to get involved with an insurrection on a detention center.
Right.
You talk about you're totally being back. You're not serving in the community.
Right.
And you're committing official misconduct. That's another thing I think people don't understand enough. All through schools, we're always told, if you don't follow the law, you're going to get fired and you could subsequently end up in prison. We have elected officials now bum rushing the gate of an ICE detention center, assaulting officers. I want to see people indicted for official misconduct and removed from office. I'm tired of this narrative now where they're allowed to incite political violence and it's okay to try to get a vote. Because that's Ras Baraka is running for governor in New Jersey. He assaults an officer. No one's even talking about him dropping out of the race. This is the problem we have right now, right? Could you imagine if the cops, the ICE
Republican.
agents, which they perceive as excessive force, just defended themselves with authorized force, just think of that narrative would have been twisted. Right. Oh, they were just there to stick up for the illegals. Everything's racial. Because Barack even mentioned that it was a racial incident recently. I mean, so when in doubt, they play race card. I'm a xenophobe. You know, it's just never ending with the Democrat Party.
Always about the fear mongering.
Always about it.
Yeah,
that's what they get control
Absolutely.
with.
So guys, let me ask you, as retired New Jersey law enforcement officers, do you think that the safety of law enforcement professionals in New Jersey has been put at risk by non-cooperation from local authorities with federal immigration authorities?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you have these extremely dangerous individuals now roaming the streets of New Jersey, but it's not just. At least officers, we're trained to defend ourselves. I think we've seen the violence towards American women, like the public is really in danger of these people. I mean, from coast to coast, right? We see women brutally raped and murdered. Lincoln Riley, I think one of the most horrible recordings I ever heard. You could literally hear the illegal beating her head in with a rock with the 911 tape. So yeah, I mean, anytime you have these super dangerous, and I say it because they're coming from countries where violence is the way of life, right? Kidnapping, that's how they make money. Stabbing people to death, shooting people to death. So now they're on our streets, and we see it, right? Aurora, Colorado, we see cities being taken over by these gangs. Times Square is under siege. I mean, everybody saw the videos of the NYPD getting beaten up by the illegal aliens. They have no respect for the law. And then we have the Democrat Party who defends them. So it's one side and the other side all getting together now, and now you have this explosion of crime. Listen, I think we both know, right, Buck? Crime stats can easily be manipulated. I don't.
Absolutely.
Who thinks New York City's safe right now? I don't. Do you think? Would you get on that subway? I would think twice before. I wouldn't want any member of my family on the subway. No. So yeah, and here in New Jersey, we've had incidents with illegals and the violence, and the Democrat Party's encouraging it. We have judges. You see these liberal judges now who are protecting them. So if you feel you can do whatever you want and get away with it, what are you going to do? You're going to continue to be violent. You're going to continue to commit crimes. And zero respect for law enforcement. Zero. I mean, there's always some type of physical interaction when there's an arrest involved, unless the cops are there in a large amount of numbers in force. But you see it when they go to execute these ICE warrants, how they have to come with the emergency services, with the highly trained units, with the heavy weaponry and whatnot. But the average cop don't have that. In New Jersey, we don't have shotguns in the cars. They keep us armed as minimal as possible. I mean, to carry mace, we had to get trained. We had to get sprayed with mace to carry it. Sorry, I'm not signing up for that. You're not macing me.
Yeah, you had to. And it is true. And you see it more in some communities. Again, where I grew up in Princeton, the local law enforcement is not working with ICE. And they'll put out disclaimers. They'll put out a press release that, don't want you to be alarmed that there was ICE, we're here in our town or in Hopewell Township in Mercer County. ICE was here for an investigation. Just make you aware that our agency wasn't involved. What am I missing here? You're law enforcement. Collectively, you work together. And I don't get the narrative where they feel that by putting that out, it's going to make the community safer or feel that they're in better hands because we're not involved with the federals. Tell me, I'm on the other side. Bring Tom Homan. I want him in my town. Yeah. I want him here. Come to New Jersey, go to Newark. Let's lock up the 3 Democratic council members or state senate people that were there pushing back. And for someone to sit there and it's all again on body camera talking about it. I didn't body slam. Well, you're pushing an ICE agent. You're pushing officers. You're in their face cussing them out. You're an elected official. You should be held to a higher standard. We were held to higher standards. We always are held to higher standards to do our job. So why are we not working collectively in law enforcement? Again, I think I touched on this before. We all put a badge on. We all put our pants on. We all put a vest on to go out there and do a job to serve and protect people. But why are we not collectively doing it? Because you don't like the narrative, because we opened up our border and we brought these people here because we welcome everybody, when we're seeing what the consequences are with, like you said, Lincoln Riley, Ms. Morin down in Maryland. And then they're going out to El Salvador to try to get this guy back because of due process. Did they come here with due process to get into our country? They did not. And the Democrats know it. But they're going to try to do everything they can to push that narrative that everyone deserves to be, constitutionally served and given the right. You're not here legally. That's your first violation. You illegally came into our country. But when it comes down to working collectively with, law enforcement, like I said, I worked with county, state, federal agencies. Why are we not still working collectively with those agencies now? Again, the Democrats don't want that narrative. They don't want us working. They want to push back. We open up the floodgates. We want to give them driver's license. Well, driver's license in New Jersey leads you to get registered to vote. So we know where that narrative went, and that's what they're trying to push, so that they can vote. Oh, they gave us credit cards. They gave us cell phones. They gave us shelter. They gave us clothing. They gave us everything in the world to come here. So I'm going to, back those people. They're criminals.
Well, I think there's two primary reasons why this is happening. You just touched on one of them. I think it's about changing and shifting the voting demographic.
Absolutely.
And, stacking the deck in favor for the Democratic Party.
Right.
But I think the other reason is sort of this manipulation of a narrative that if you're a good person, if you're a good person, you should want anybody and everybody to be able to come into our country and have the American dream and the American experience available for everyone. Here's what I think the bottom line is. It doesn't matter to me if 99 out of 100 people who come to our country illegally are good people. If 1 out of 100 is coming here and committing crime and raping
Right.
people or hurting people or killing people, that's too much.
Right.
And it's not worth the risk of even having the 99 good people coming in.
Absolutely
So this leads to the other question. For those people who think, oh, well, we have to be good people and we have to allow everyone to come here and everyone deserves that. A lot of suburban women are supporting the Democrat Party. You both brought up the danger that this puts women in. What's the disconnect?
Well,
what are these people missing?
I think because I worked in an urban area, I've seen violence and I've encountered gang members. I have a different perspective on it, but I also think the media is controlling and manipulating the perception, right? They're making these illegal aliens like they're victims now. That's why when everyone out there hears the term ghost criminal, that's because the local agencies aren't cooperating with ICE, so they don't have access to the database.
What does that mean, ghost criminal?
So if the local agency doesn't cooperate with ICE, arrest somebody, it doesn't come up in the fingerprints, they're not checking him through the ICE database, the illegal alien database. So since there's no cooperation there, so they're being released, think, oh, they don't have no criminal record. So I've heard the term used a number of times with the New York City elected body. Oh, it's a ghost criminal. There's always one thing about the Democrats. There's always an excuse why one of these illegal aliens committed a crime. It's never acceptance of blame. So I think the suburbs now are being targeted, right? Because you have the auto thefts have gone up with the soft on crime policies. In my town, we had 2 illegals arrested breaking into a house. Now, obviously, the cops, if they don't recover a car at the scene, what do you think is going on? It's a ring where they're being dropped off. They're driving neighborhoods, they're casing houses. People really need to understand that the media is not giving them the proper information when it comes to the illegals. And that's having a big effect on the suburban women. Because, let's face it, here in New Jersey especially, we have no fair and balanced media.
No.
Right? I mean, there really isn't.
No,
when you think about
we're
it.
relying on New York and Philly
Right.
for our news.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't have
Right,
a
and
New
that's not
Jersey
saying
based.
much.
Yeah.
Right, and
Right.
instead of giving you the news, they're giving you their opinions.
Right.
And they're only giving the narrative in the news that they feel you need to hear. They're not giving you the full broad brush of what's going on behind the scenes to understand that's going on. Just like Mark said, just 2 weeks ago, NYPD guys are standing there on the beat, foot patrol, and a group of juveniles come up and they're trying to grab someone's purse. And as soon as the police engage, now they're attacking the cops, throwing a basketball, throwing water bottles, pushing on the cops. There's 2 or 3 guys, and the gang is like 6 or 7 or 8 kids. And they're juveniles because, again, Democrats and juveniles, they're not going to get charged. There was a police officer shot in
Are these citizens you're talking about? Or,
but we're talking, in the case of the pushback and dealing with, where there isn't the lawlessness comes from. It becomes from these illegals.
I'm only asking that question because, again, we're supposed to believe that these communities are terrified of police officers, and yet we see video after video of them throwing bottles at them, insulting. That's not the behavior of people who seem terrified by the police.
They're not, because the consequences. There is no consequence for your action here.
That's right.
Whereas, like they said, come another country, you're losing a hand, they're putting you in prison. There's consequences for your actions there. So hey, if I can go there and just loot and steal and do whatever I want to do, why not? Nothing's going to happen.
Well, bail reform, we
Right.
mentioned, that's catch and release.
In
Let's
New
face
Jersey.
it, you get locked up now, you're out before the paperwork's finished.
Yeah.
And especially with these illegals. I don't know what's on our police report today, but when I was on the job, it used to have your immigration status. I'm sure it's been removed. We have DEI now, so.
Yeah.
And I think also, let's face it, the training now, right? They're trained to really not be proactive. It's more like reactive. We used to have a say, right? Police officers are reactive, cops are proactive. Right. There was two types within the police department. And I think you're losing a lot of proactive cops now because they're afraid that they're not going to have no support. So when you have these gangs of illegals going around doing whatever they want to do, you have no intelligence no more. People need to understand the danger that they're really in. And unfortunately, with the lack of media, they really don't have that. That's why everybody's turning to podcasts now, turning to you now. I mean, it's really important that we get the message out. And that's why I was really excited to come on the show, because I think the message has to be put out there that you're not being told the truth. The facts are illegal aliens, these criminals they're not good people. They're bringing their ways of making money. I had an involvement when arrest 3 Colombians were kidnapping and armed kidnapping. And as I approached the car, he pulled a gun out and then put it under his seat. But like I was explaining to people, that's the way they make money in their country. So they're bringing that here now, that level of violence. And there's no one that is actually telling the truth about it, especially here in New Jersey. New Jersey Democrats have turned our state into one big sinkhole. We have a sinkhole problem. The whole state's a sinkhole now. Crime has really gone up, while education has gone down. And we have elected officials now engaged in insurrections. And I'm going to keep saying that word, insurrection, because that's what they're involved in.
And they're provoking it.
Yeah.
You have senators that are provoking it. That'll go out there and say, we need to go to the streets, we need to fight back, we need to push back. Well, wait a minute. What happened to being collective and being respective and letting things go through the course of how they should be done to get a situation resolved or get something taken care of, not pushing back on the streets and just telling everyone, hey, we need to get out there and fight back, we need to push back. That's not the narrative of what they want. Their pushback is more of a physical, verbal, like you said, going on the streets and the colleges with, wearing a face mask and covering up. You're out there to protest, peaceful, I get it, but that's not peaceful what you're doing. You're locking buildings down. You have Jewish students that can't go to a class.
Right.
Well, what am I missing here?
Right.
That they're paying for the same education, they want to get an education, and you're telling me he can't go to his class, or you're chaining up the doors, or you're locking up janitors that work in the building doing their job. That's their job, and you're putting people in harm's way and in fear.
Well,
And
whoever
it's
thought
improper.
the New Jersey delegation, the Democrat delegation of the House of Representatives, want to see America fail? They would rather defend illegals as opposed to American citizens and law enforcement.
Well, what you guys are talking about right now, earlier I said I feel like there were 2 main reasons. It's kind of the faux morality, and then it's also about increasing the numbers to try to get the votes. But I'm going to add a third reason right now, which is also about trying to increase, to win elections. But destabilization. I think that pretty much everything that we're talking about today could be under the umbrella of that word destabilization. There seems to be a common theme of leftist policies that if they can create as much chaos and anarchy and turn black, white, up, down, everything inside out, they can destabilize our society, and then they can come in and say, we're going to be the guys to fix this, vote for us. Right. Do you feel that way?
Sure. When you talk about and go back to an open border, there's so many people that are unaccounted for, that we don't know where they are, we don't know what they're doing. Are we going to have civil unrest in our country? Is there, and not to say like a militia, but is that going to come down to that? And then what am I going to do to protect my property, protect my family? I take things in my hands, and I'm going to end up being the criminal because I'm protecting my property, doing what I feel is right. In the state of New Jersey, God forbid someone breaks in your house and you shoot them and kill them, you're done. You're the criminal for doing what you did, protecting your property for someone who came into my property that I'm paying for in the state. It's horrible.
And I think it's turning voters off too. I think destabilization you were talking about. I think it's intimidating people from coming out to vote. That's why I think you see a lot of low numbers in New Jersey. I mean, I'm out campaigning. I recently had a woman tell me she was afraid to put a lawn sign in front of her house.
Yeah.
Oh, you have my vote, Mark, but I don't want to put a sign out front because, you know, everything that's going on in politics. I mean, people are intimidated now by destabilization, like what you were just discussing. And I think that's having a drastic effect on voter turnout, which favors them, which favors the Democrats. Because good people are afraid to vote. They also feel like their vote it doesn't matter how I vote in New Jersey because the radical Democrats are going to have the numbers out because they have the illegals voting now. They always get a big turnout.
Yeah. I know. I wanted to touch on one thing real quick though. Go down a neighborhood and you know who your friends and your neighbors are and got American flags.
Exactly.
With the pride.
You know who a Republican
You got the
house
pride.
is, right.
You got the pride with the flag.
Yeah.
People are afraid to put a flag out in their home because, I'm going to get pushback from my neighbor or somebody.
Right. Well, guys, it's been really great to hear from you today and speak with you, and your perspectives were amazing, very eye-opening. I just want to close out today by asking you, what is your vision for a better New Jersey going forward?
Well, I'm running for Old Bridge, New Jersey, Ward 4 Council, and I just want to really make sure people get out to vote early, vote by mail, but you have to vote. We took back America, now it's time to take back our state by voting common sense back. Listen, I think the Trenton Swamp, they want puppets, not fighters. I think I'm a known fighter. I've always been out there fighting for my community, and I want to turn these voters, they have to think they're fighters now to take back their communities, take back the state of New Jersey. That's why the only way to be heard is by voting. Don't be intimidated, get out and vote.
Again, thank you for having me here today. We need to get a Republican governor in New Jersey. We need to. We need to turn New Jersey red. We need to get back to common sense. I ran as a candidate for sheriff in the past because I felt that visibility is a deterrent. Our sheriff's office in our county is working in the courts. They're not on the streets. More law enforcement on the streets is a deterrent to crime, more visibility. Having a Republican governor who's going to have law enforcement's back, they're fighting for New Jersey to make New Jersey safer, to make our community safer, is important in our New Jersey, to know that they're going to have the backs of law enforcement. They're going to have ICE work with local agencies, bring the feds in, do their job. There's over 900,000 illegals in New Jersey. We need to make that change. And it's only going to change if we do get a Republican here and make that change to make New Jersey a safer, better place to live, as it used to be years ago, and it isn't currently with what's going on with the current political element.
Gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.